Right, good afternoon guys. So it's a beautiful day. We've got the swallows and everything in the garden still flying around. We've got 3 or 4 pairs. So they're quite active, which is good. Just going to see really, just for a bit of interest. We've got the A6700 on the 200-600 at the moment. And I'll swap the A1 onto there as well. It's sitting on the 135 at the moment, just because there's a lens on there, and the RX10. So the 1-inch all-in-one beast with 24-600 f4 lens. So it'd just be interesting to see how well the RX10 1V and the A6700 keep up with the A1. A lot lower frame rate on the A6700, only 10 frames a second or thereabouts. Got up to 24 frames per second with the RX10, and obviously up to 30 with the A1. So who knows? One thing that does come into play is how fast can I move? How fast can I stay with a swallow? Because a swallow will fly like this, and you'll be like, oh, I'm on it, like that, and then suddenly it just goes, and you're like, where did it go? And they move so fast that sometimes you just cannot keep up with them. So yeah, it is a case of a bit of luck sometimes, and down to your reaction speed. So I'm going to set these up and see how we go. Just going to snap away and see what I can capture and see what the limitations are of each camera. You know, is the new firmware update on the A1, for example, now much better than the intelligence of the separate chip or whatever is in the A6700, the A7C2, A7CR and the A7R5. Does that autofocus chip and everything make a huge difference compared to the A1's just sheer speed, basically? And got to remember as well, the RX10 Mark IV has sort of A9 technology in it, so it's still very quick. The only downside with this is I cannot zoom in and out because it's electronic zoom. For some reason you cannot zoom it in and out if you've got your finger on the focus button, basically, which is a little bit degrading in the respect that, you know, with the 200-600 I can literally back in and out constantly, which is good. Oh, crows and a buzzard. That's our first target. Oh, F14, that's not ideal. Where are we? I think the buzzard flew away. He got dive bombed down. Don't know. And one other problem we have is heat haze. Got starlings flying around as well, so we may have ended up with starlings or swallows, but we shall see. I'm going to start off with the A6700. I'll then pop onto the RX10 Mark IV, and then I'll move on to the A1 and see how we get on. Obviously every shot's going to be slightly different because the birds will be doing different things, flying around. It's nature at the end of the day, but it should be interesting just to see how capable they really are in the real world, just outside in a sunny day, and go from there. I'm going to put some of these in shade somewhere because they're getting quite warm. RX10s are already quite hot. A1's not so much because this I've got a cage on it which actually helps reduce temperatures. So anyway, I'm going to snap away. Right guys, so I've got the A6700 on the 200-600, and the swallows are about, we are at 1/3200th of a second, f6.3, and basically the stables, which are over here, should well follow me in theory, look down, stables are there, that's where the swallows are nesting, and they're flying in and out, they're flying across the fields. So yeah, and he's just gone in. We've got one starlings down on the fence. So with this, the 200-600, I just find it so easy to be able to go back to 200, find your subject, and then just zoom in to wherever you need to be in a very, very short period of time. And that's one downside of the RX10, is that you can't zoom in and out unless you're off the focus button, basically. Oh, no. That'll teach me, wouldn't it? Check my focus points and everything. Right, let's get into zone and try and see what I can capture, basically. There's loads of starlings sitting on the fence down there. A lot of our fence is falling down, it's old and bits are falling down, it just needs pulling down really, but at the same time, it is what it is. Lots of wildflowers starting to grow in the field, which is nice. It's just a case now of I won't bore you, but basically, yeah, it's I'm just going to snap. So I'll be back shortly once I've actually managed to capture something. Otherwise, I'll sort of struggle to talk. And as other photographers will agree, if you're a YouTuber or you do a lot of video as well, it's quite difficult to concentrate on what you're trying to do and talk and, you know, speak to people, kind of thing. So yeah, I'll be back once I can get my head around stuff. Right, and starting off with the RX10 Mark IV, the all-in-one beast. And as you can see here, it does very well at small things. Birds in flight is pretty good as well. It's not as intelligent as a lot of the newer cameras, but it can still go to the edge. As you can see here, I just about kept with the a swallow there. I wasn't as lucky, and they sort of come and disappear for 20 minutes or so, so it was a bit of hit and miss with finding the birds. But as you can see, it's just a crop in of that shot. It's nice and sharp, and you know, be pretty happy with it, even though it's right at the edge of their frame. And just staying with the birds is a nightmare, because they move so quickly, they change direction very quickly. The other thing the RX10 Mark IV can do, and if you didn't know this, it has a thing called HFR, and it goes up to 1,000 frames per second. This is shot at 500 frames per second, which is quite usable. 1,000 isn't so much, because it upscales so much to get the quality, but it's an old camera at the end of the day. But again, things like wildlife and be able to see things happening in that slow motion just looks awesome. Your focus is locked, but you can actually manually focus if you want to. But as you can see here, autofocus is pretty good. I do lose it for a bit there, and it could come back, and then I'll lose it completely in a second. I was actually using more of a spot autofocus there, and then went straight down there, and then it just missed after that for a moment. But as you can see, photos out of it are very good still. You've got up to 1/32,000th of a second. That was 1/8,000th of a second, f4. And then onto the A6700 APS-C size sensor. Very good new camera. It's been up 6 months or something like that now. I've had it. Very, very usable, very good. Obviously interchangeable lens, so you haven't got the benefit of what the RX10 has. But still a very, very good camera. These are quite large crop-ins because I just couldn't keep up. But you have, on the 200 to 600, becomes a 300 to 900 millimeter equivalent. Also, you've got 4K 120, which is a huge crop-in. So you're looking at about, I think it's 1350 millimeters equivalent. So you do lose a little bit of quality, but then the fact I'm so much closer than I could ever be, even with clear image zoom. And I'm shooting at 4K 120, so I can slow it down nicely. Obviously with slow motion you need a lot of light, so the brighter the day the better, because you can have your shutter speeds up and just get a smoother a nicer light. But as you can see there, it works pretty well. You know, unfortunately the day I shot this, the wildlife was a bit random, so as you saw, there wasn't that many pictures of the birds flying, other than a crow that was chasing this off at the beginning, but I didn't get much. But the buzzard was flying around later on, so I managed to capture him, but he's still quite a good 150 meters away. Luckily it wasn't too warm. It didn't have any heat haze as such, but both impressive cameras in both their own rights. So depending on what your budget is, 1350 now for the RX10 Mark IV, and I think about 1600 quid for the A6700. Then onto the Sony A1. But as you can see here, the that's at real speed. This is at real speed. How fast nature moves, and me struggling to keep up with that swallow. And as you can see, it's just flapping around, and I'm zoomed out, and me just trying to stay with it, just to put it into perspective. But there we go, pigeon coming through the undergrowth, flat out. You would see my other video with the A1's updated firmware and the autofocus performance. This is one of the shots from it, straight out of the camera, quite high ISO because it wasn't actually that bright, but to get the shutter speeds up, that's what I had to do. But as you can see there, it just stays on it, even behind a fence, which was highly impressive, to be fair. And it's happening so quick. Again, I think that's a young starling after a bug. And then in the other video as well, you'll see that I actually missed it, got it, missed it, got it, because it was moving so quickly. The camera's doing the work, and I'm trying to stay with it. So it was almost like a vertical takeoff and then into horizontal flight. So absolutely game changer with the A1 there, with its updated firmware, completely new camera basically. Very, very pleased with it, as are a few others, and that's one of the shots. A huge cropping, thankfully the 50 megapixels really helping the cropping inside, so it definitely does come across as probably being the best wildlife camera out there. Right guys, so my conclusion for today: the A1 just annihilates all of them massively. And one is the viewfinder, really good viewfinder. It's much bigger than the A6700 and the RX10, so much clearer view. One is speed. This tracks so much faster. It may not be quite as intelligent with the special chip and all that crap in it on the A6700 or the others, but now with this new firmware, this thing is mad. I haven't missed a thing, and I've got some really cool shots, so very pleased. Within 2 minutes of going outside, I know a lot of it is right time, right place kind of thing, but I found it easier with this compared to the A6700 or the RX10. But at the same time, like I said before, is the RX10 has its place. It's got me shots that I would never have ever got with any other camera. From a mink coming out of Bodiam Castle's moat, where if I'd had these cameras on, I would have had a wide angle lens on, and it would have been like bag off back, put bigger lens on by the time the moments happened. Fish jumping out of the moat at Bodiam, for example, shot I've never ever got until I had this. Yes, these could have got them, but at the same time I was out for a walk and I was going lightweight, and I had a 600mm lens, and it jumped out of the other side. I kind of was tracking a fish, so I watched the fish do it several times, and it was just a reaction shot. But yeah, downside of the RX10 is it's showing its age. The photos that come out of it, which you'll see in a second, are still very good. They're sharp. It hunts a bit, especially up in the sky, so it will struggle to find the swallows. It will sometimes miss them completely, but that's one thing, is me not moving quick enough, and two, it just sometimes decides to hunt a bit further. You can actually hear the it's trying so fast, you can actually hear sometimes the electromagnetic focusing motor actually whack. Actually, you can feel it hit each end, the buffers. So it's trying its best, but obviously some things it's going to struggle with. But saying that, when I put the limiter on, so 3 meter to infinity, it was quicker, obviously, because it's removed 3 meters worth of focal plane, which is obviously helpful. RX10, sorry, that's the RX10. The A6700, very, very good. Limitations though, shutter speed. So you can only do 1/4000th of a second shutter speed, which I said. The viewfinder's too small. But other than that, it's very good. Quality is very good. The fact you've got a crop sensor. So this is one reason why I bought 3 different types of cameras, because obviously A1 full frame, very shallow depth of field with certain lenses, very sharp, high quality piece of equipment, very fast, does the job, but obviously massive price tag. The RX10 I've had for 7 years now. This is the second one I've had, but since it was released basically, and it's the go-to for travel, walkabouts. if you don't want to take anything with you, but you can still take this because it just fits in a bag. And the A6700 is basically a backup camera for the A1, so one for doing different things. So when I'm shooting products and stuff like that, and I need to do hundreds of them, actually the A6700 is really ideal because the files on this are massive, and I only needed small files for website stuff. So the A6700 has its own place for work, and it will shoot in silent mode, no trouble at all, no banding, no nothing, with studio lighting. So obviously LED lighting, not flash without having a mechanical shutter, but it allows me to work with LED lighting and I have no mechanical wear, which is great. So general wildlife side of things though, the A1 annihilates them both. Having the extra reach a little bit is helpful on the A6700, and obviously the range and some of the specs on the RX10 are still way higher than the A6700, and it's sort of in the same price bracket really. With the RX10 you can basically have the same as the A1, 132,000th of a second shutter speed. Obviously I'll have a fixed lens, but f2.4 at 24mm out to f4 at 600mm, where obviously I've got this, which is 200 to 600 f6.3. Image sensors obviously slightly different in size. You've got a 1-inch, a APS-C and a full frame. So the benefits of that is, like I said, with work and stuff like that, the actual A6700 with products and stuff, actually where you want a bit more depth naturally, because the sensor's smaller, it's actually quite helpful because you don't need to stop down as far to get the shots. But same with wildlife stuff, the A6700 and the RX10, both crops have naturally got more depth in shot. So actually when you're shooting things like a swallow in flight, or a fox, or even a cat that's decided to have a little sleep, you're going to get more in focus naturally. You'll still get a nice blur at the background behind you, but instead of having a really out of focus nose and just sharp eyes, you'll get, you know, a little bit more, a little bit easier. So actually these cheaper cameras down, you know, with smaller sensors are actually benefiting most users without them really knowing. So yeah, you know, if I was to shoot with the 135G Master on the A1 with Tommy, I couldn't really shoot f1.8 unless I was quite a long distance away, because half of his face would be out of focus. But if I did it with the A6700, I wouldn't, well, I'd still have to be further away, but you're going to get a little bit more depth as with the RX10. So yeah, it's all swings and roundabouts, I think, in the real world. And do you need to spend £6,500 on a camera to get some really good shots? No, you don't at all. And the RX10 Mark IV as an all-in-one is proof that there are pieces of equipment out there that really do a job very well, give us some amazing quality images and video as well. But at the same time, there's limitations and restrictions in certain areas that, I mean, you can't imagine something like this to really exist that could be much better. But there is obviously improvements now where technology's moved. But you know, when this first came out, this was an absolute powerhouse, and it still is a powerhouse, and it does things that a lot of the cameras can't even do. Like I say, it's up there with the A1 with speed and things like that, and the A9, autofocus speed and everything, but shutter speed ability, fast stack sensor with no need to have a mechanical shutter, even though it's got a leaf shutter, so you can use flash and stuff, but I always shoot with it in electronic shutter, as I do with the A1. So yeah, there's, like I say, benefits and disadvantages with all of these, and you know, but it's interesting because I'd normally just pick a camera up and go and shoot. I'm not really that worried what I'm using, as long as I know, you know, where I'm going. I mean, if I'm going to go for a 2 or 3 hour walk, I'm going to take the RX10 with me. If I'm going out in the garden, generally I'll pick the A1 up with the 200, 600, because I know, unless I want a little bit extra reach, or maybe a moonshot or something, I might take the A6700. But yeah, it's just, yeah, just awesome. We're very, very lucky, I think, as photographers today. It doesn't matter which company you choose to use, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Most of them now have tech that is way up there with speed and quality and everything like that. And yes, they share parts and sensors and computers and ideas and technology and all that sort of stuff. And it makes a huge difference to us, because every time someone brings a new one out, like Sony A9 III, global shutter, boom. What's Canon and Nikon going to do now? There's little things like that. The Z9, the Z8 from Nikon, fantastic. I'm not really a Canon follower as such, but obviously got the R1 at some point coming. And, that's obviously going to be another level of game-changing stuff, I'm sure. But we just, having competition between major brands is fantastic, because it does push innovation in the photography side of stuff. But it's like, how far do you need to go? What do we really need in a camera now that we haven't got? One, we're always speed hungry, and that's where the RX10 lets itself down now. To write 24 photos to a card takes quite a while to clear that buffer. Well, not say 24, a couple of hundred shots to be fair. Where the A1's done it before I've even thought about it. So, when I can push video and start recording, this sort of locks out a bit. A6700 is very good. It clears itself very quickly, but that's just down to bitrate speed and smaller sensor, less megapixels. It can get away with having a fast SD card, where obviously this is using CF Express A cards. You obviously can use SD cards in it as well. But yeah, if you're starting out with photography now, 2024, I would say, if you're desperate to have interchangeable lenses and that's where you want to go, I think the A6700 is a fantastic camera to start with. If you want something for travel and amazing stuff where you can do a bit of everything, the RX10 Mark IV is still an absolute bargain. I think it's still 1,300 quid there at the moment, even though it is a bit old and it is a little bit behind on technology advancements now, because obviously it's seven-year-old tech. A1 is obviously way up there in the price, and but if you're going professional and you know your stuff, it's one to go for. And I'm so glad I bought it, and a couple of years ago now. It's been an absolute fantastic bit of kit. Changed the way I shoot, allowed me to do more speed and things like that. Has allowed me to get shots that I don't think I'd ever get with anything previous that I owned. So all three fantastic cameras still, all got their own quirks, positives and negatives, but yeah, very pleased with the update on the A1 with that new firmware and everything. Now it's running properly, and I've not had any issues. I don't think many people have had any issues since. He must have had a hard day hunting or something. Like I say, A6700 is fantastic as well, and the RX10. So, any questions about any of these cameras and anything else out there Sony based, because obviously I do know most of the settings and bits and pieces in there, let me know down in the comments below. What do you use? Let me know what you use. You a Canon, Nikon, Fuji, Panasonic, Hasselblad? I'd love a Hasselblad. But yeah, a bit out of the price range. And yeah, let me know what you do, and be interesting actually, because I'm a little bit of an all-rounder, and there's obviously a lot of people for hobby amateur photographers do a lot of wildlife because it's very accessible and it's cool to capture. We've got air shows, we've got portraiture, you've got products, you've got landscapes, you've got astro, you've got multiple sports and everything like that. So let me know what you do, as well as what camera you use. It's very interesting to find out. So yeah, anyway, have a good one. I shall see you soon.